falling sideways, thick, sharp, furious. The kind of storm that doesn't just cut across the forest, it pierces through bone. And in the middle of it, Elara is running for her life. Her boots sink deep into the frozen earth with every stumbling, desperate step. Her cloak, once thick enough to shield her from mountain cold, is now torn wide open, flapping behind her like a wounded wing. Blood drips rhythmically from her arm, warm against her chilled skin, each drop vanishing the moment it touches the snow. Her breath clouds the air in frantic bursts. Her heartbeat is louder than the wind, louder than the distant howls echoing off the cliffs. She doesn't dare look back. The forest is a maze of shadows and clawing branches. Every trunk she passes seems to whisper her name. Every gust of snow stings her eyes until tears blur into frost. She wipes at her cheek with numb fingers, whispering, "Just a little farther, please, just a little." Her voice breaks on the last word. But the forest doesn't care about breaking. It only cares about taking. And tonight, it feels alive, watching, listening, waiting for her to fall. Elara clutches her wounded arm close to her chest. The cut is deep, she knows that. She can smell the metallic tang of her own blood. And she knows they can smell it too. Her boots skid on a patch of ice. She slams into a tree trunk, shoulder first, the impact rattling through her bones. For a moment, she can't breathe. Not from fear. Not from pain. But from the crushing certainty that she is out of time. She presses her back to the tree, chest heaving, forcing herself to stay still. Her eyes dart wildly around the forest, searching, straining, begging for any sign of safety. But there is none. The snowstorm swallows sound. The night swallows light. And every inch of her body screams that she is not alone out here. Elara raises her trembling hand. Her fingers twitch, her breath hitches. She tries, again, to summon the silver flame. Her power flickers at her fingertips, a tiny spark. A soft, stubborn glow of light in the brutal darkness. For one hopeful heartbeat, she thinks it will rise. But the spark sputters. Weakens. Dies out completely. Her throat tightens. Tears freeze at the corners of her lashes. "Not now," she whispers. "Moon, please, not now." She presses her palm against the snow-covered ground, trying to draw strength from the cold, from the earth, from anything that has even a shred of mercy left. But mercy is a rare visitor in these mountains. A branch snaps in the distance. Too sharp. Too intentional. Too close. Elara's breath catches in her lungs. She doesn't blink. She doesn't move. She doesn't even swallow. The storm roars around her, but that single crack cuts through it, clean, vivid, unmistakable. Then another. Then silence. The kind of silence that crawls across the skin like a warning. Something is moving out there. Something fast. Something hunting. She presses her back harder against the tree, fingers digging into the bark as if she can hold herself steady through all alone. Her legs tremble beneath her. Her pulse pounds in her ears. Her throat aches with the need to scream, run, beg, anything. But she stays still. Frozen. Listening. Then it happens. A shape slips through the storm. Not fully seen, not fully hidden. A shadow darker than the night, quicker than the wind. Too fast to be human. Far, far too fast. Elara's knees buckle. She sinks down against the trunk, the cold biting through her clothes, her skin, her hope. Her injured arm pulses with pain that radiates through her whole body. The shadow circles her in silence. Her breath stutters. Her vision doubles. The forest tilts. Her fingers slip across the snow. She grasps at nothing. And for the first time in hours, maybe days, she feels it. She might not make it out of this night alive. A low growl curls through the air, smooth, confident, hungry. She can't see its source clearly. The storm is too thick, her blood loss too heavy, her fear too blinding. But she feels eyes on her. Watching. Measuring. Claiming. Her lips tremble as she whispers to the storm. I have to keep going, before they find me, before he finds me. Another growl cuts her off. Closer this time. And deeper. The kind that vibrates through the earth and into her bones. She tries to stand again, her hand clutching at the tree. Her legs wobble, her breath breaks, her vision wavers. She collapses to her knees. The snow welcomes her like a cold embrace. The shadow stops moving. The forest stills around her. Even the wind holds its breath. Elara's chest rises and falls in ragged shivers. Her fingers curl weakly into the snow. She whispers, almost a prayer, almost a surrender. Please, not like this. The storm thickens until she is nearly swallowed whole by white. And then, a footstep. Soft. Measured. Approaching. The shadow steps closer, its outline sharper now. Broad shoulders. A towering frame. A presence that bends the storm around it. Elara's heart lurches painfully. She knows that silhouette. She knows that power. She knows that name she fears more than the night itself. But before she can speak, before she can run or scream or fight, her vision blurs to darkness at the edges. Her body sways. Her eyes flutter. She is falling, helpless, into the snow. And the last thing she hears before everything slips away is a voice. Low, dark, and devastatingly calm. Murmuring her name like a verdict. Elara. The world tilts sideways as Elara sinks deeper into the snow, her consciousness slipping in and out like distant waves crashing against a shore she can no longer reach. But something holds her on the edge. A sound. A tremor. A vibration so low it shivers through the ground and up her spine. Footsteps. Heavy. Deliberate. Compressing the snow with a certainty that belongs only to something, or someone, dangerous. They are not rushed. Not frantic. Not searching blindly. Whoever is approaching already knows exactly where she is. Elara tries to lift her head, but her body refuses. Her blood loss has turned her limbs to ice. Her vision is a blur of swirling white and encroaching darkness. Still, she forces her fingers into the snow, dragging herself backward inch by inch. Her breath trembles out. No, not you, not now. Her palm slips on the slick surface. Her wounded arm burns. Her knees collapse beneath her. She tries, desperately, to summon even a flicker of the silver flame. But all she feels is emptiness. A hollow echo where her strength should be. Then the footsteps stop. Silence folds over the forest again. A thick, suffocating silence that steals warmth and courage in the same breath. The storm parts around a figure. Shadow first. Shape next. Presence last. Tall. Still. Predatory. Golden eyes glinting like twin stars in the blizzard's throat. A growl rolls through the air. Not animal. Not wolf. Human, and something far beyond human. Elara's heart clenches around the sound. No. Not him. Not here. She forces herself upright, pressing her back against the tree, legs shaking beneath her. The figure steps forward. The wind bends around him, almost bowing. The snow avoids his face as if the storm itself fears him. The golden eyes lock onto her. And for the first time, the voice she hears is not from memory, but from the present. From right in front of her. Elara. Her name leaves his lips like a command, and a confession. She flinches violently. Her fingers curl weakly in the snow. You, she whispers, throat raw. You can't be here. The man takes another step, and the storm seems to dim. Even through her fading vision, Elara sees the truth of him. The severity in his jaw. The cold dominion in his presence. The strength coiled under his control. Alpha Draven. The alpha of the Shadowborn. Feared across every pack. A name spoken only in warnings and nightmares. He stands before her like the storm's chosen ruler, snow swirling around his broad shoulders, dark cloak snapping behind him. Her heart slams painfully against her ribs. He can't be here. He shouldn't even know her. And yet he said her name as if he had spoken it 100 times before. Elara presses harder into the tree, forcing herself to stay upright. "What do you want?" she breathes. Draven studies her with a piercing stillness. When he speaks, his voice is low, controlled, but unmistakably troubled. "I've been tracking you." The words crash over her like ice water. Her hands tremble. "What? Why?" His eyes sweep over her wounds, her torn clothes, the fading glow at her fingertips. The storm hums against the moment, waiting. Draven's gaze sharpens, gold gleaming brighter. "For days," he says quietly. "Ever since the sky tore open with silver light." Elara freezes. He saw it. The surge. The uncontrolled burst of fire. The thing she didn't understand, didn't want, didn't ask for. Draven steps closer, boots sinking deep into the snow. "I felt the energy," he continues, voice tightening. "Unnatural. Unstable." It shook the ground. Her breath catches. He wasn't hunting her. He was hunting the power she can't control. Her pulse stumbles in fear. She pushes herself off the tree and tries to move, tries to run, but her legs nearly buckle. Draven's voice cuts through the wind. "You won't make it 10 steps. His tone isn't cruel. It isn't mocking. It's factual. Uncomfortably true. She stumbles anyway. Anything to put distance between them. But the snow seems to rise against her. Her body sways. Her vision bends. Her knees collapse beneath her. And she falls. But she never hits the ground. Strong arms catch her mid-descent, one sliding around her back, the other under her knees. His grip is firm, steady, infuriatingly gentle. She gasps at the sudden warmth that radiates from his touch, heat that spreads through her frozen skin like fire waking inside her blood. For a moment, she can't breathe. His face is so close she can see the faint scar across his jaw. The flecks of molten gold in his irises. The tension held tight behind his composed expression. "Elara," he murmurs again, softer this time. Almost reluctant. "You're losing consciousness." She forces out a whisper. "Put me down." "No." The word lands between them with the weight of a vow. She tenses weakly in his arms, cold air burning her lungs. "Why, are you helping me?" she manages, voice trembling. "What do you want from me?" Draven's jaw tightens. His breath clouds the air between them. "You know what I saw," he says. "You know what you are." Elara's heart stops in her chest. "No," she rasps. "You're wrong. I'm nothing. I don't." A flicker of silver light sparks along her arm, unbidden, uncontrollable. Draven's eyes narrow, golden irises blazing brighter. "That," he says quietly, "is not nothing." She tries to push away from him, but her strength shatters like thin ice. Her voice cracks with fear and desperation. "You shouldn't come near me. I can't control it. I don't want this." The storm howls violently as if echoing her panic. Draven's hand tightens just slightly, reassuring, grounding. "I know," he says. She blinks. "You know?" His expression shifts, only a fraction, but enough. A flicker of something unguarded, conflicted, almost human. "I've seen power like this before," he admits softly. "And I've seen what happens when it destroys the one carrying it." Her breath stutters. A tremor shakes through her body, not from cold, but from the weight of his words. His voice drops lower, rougher. I'm not here to harm you, Elara. His eyes lock onto hers. I'm here because if I don't help you, you will die tonight. The words freeze her heart. Not because they're cruel, but because they're true. Her strength slips again, her head falling against his chest. He exhales sharply, not annoyance, not impatience, something else. Something like restraint. The storm rages around them, but in his arms she feels steady. Still terrified. Still confused. But no longer falling. Her voice is barely a breath. Why, do you care what happens to me? Draven hesitates. And that hesitation is more frightening than any answer. His heartbeat is steady against her ear. Too steady. Too controlled. As if he is fighting something inside himself. Finally, he speaks. I don't, he says, but the tension in his throat betrays him. I care about what you are. The words cut. But his arms never loosen around her. Her fingers curl weakly into his cloak. Then let me go, she whispers. Draven lowers his head, breath brushing her ear, voice dropping into something dark, something conflicted. I can't. And the moment he says it, she feels it too. That strange, unwanted pull. Fear. Curiosity. And something else neither of them can name. The storm howls. His grip steadies. Her heartbeat softens. And for the first time, Elara realizes she has no idea whether this man is her salvation, or the most dangerous thing she'll ever face. The storm didn't just fall from the sky. It attacked. Snow didn't drift. It swirled with a kind of wild hunger, slashing sideways as the wind screamed through the trees like something grieving, something furious. And in the middle of that chaos, stumbling between the frozen trunks, was Elara. Her cloak, once thick enough to keep out winter, hung in tatters around her shoulders. The fabric snapped behind her like a wounded banner, exposing the raw, bleeding slash across her arm. Blood trickled down to her fingertips, freezing almost instantly, the droplets turning to red crystals that shattered when they hit the ground. She didn't notice. Or she didn't let herself notice. Right now, she had only one thought left in her mind. Keep going. Just, keep going. Her boots sank deep into the snow with every step, but she forced herself forward anyway, breath tearing through her throat in sharp white bursts. Her lungs burned. Her vision blurred. Every heartbeat felt like someone tightening a rope around her chest. Behind her, the forest was too quiet in the wrong moments. Too still between the gusts of wind. Too watchful. She knew better than to turn around. Looking back made you slower. Looking back made you desperate. But still. A sound cracked behind her, faint, nearly swallowed by the storm, but real enough to slice straight through her bones. A footstep? A broken branch? Or something else entirely? Elara's pulse jumped so fast she tasted metal. She pushed herself deeper into the forest, branches clawing at her cheeks, ripping at her clothes. Cold needles stung her skin, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. The storm was savage, but it wasn't what terrified her. The thing chasing her. That was worse. That was what made her hands shake. That was what made her whisper into the darkness, voice trembling like a dying flame. Don't let them find me. Not yet, please, not yet. Another crack echoed behind her, this one louder, closer, intentional. Elara stumbled, nearly falling face first into the snow. She caught herself on a low branch, her injured arm screaming in pain, but she clenched her teeth and dragged herself upright again. Snow spun around her in brutal spirals, stinging her eyes, blinding her path, forcing her into half-run, half-stumble patterns that barely resembled movement. Every step was heavier than the last. She had lost too much blood. Her body was cold, inside and out. Her muscles were starting to stiffen, her fingers going numb. But fear, raw, bone-deep fear, kept her moving. The kind of fear that doesn't ask questions. The kind that knows exactly what happens if you stop. Her breath broke in her chest. Come on, just a little fire, she begged herself. She lifted her trembling hand, forcing focus despite the storm, despite the pain. Her fingers curled inward. Her vision narrowed. Her heartbeat slowed, stretching seconds into something cold and agonizing. A spark flickered at her fingertips. Small, silver, trembling like a ghost. Then it died. Instantly. As if swallowed by the air itself. Elara gasped. Not from surprise. Not even from fear. But from the crushing truth. Her power. The thing that should have saved her. Was abandoning her. She pressed her back against the nearest tree, her breath shuddering out of her. I can't stop, she whispered, voice barely audible above the wind. I can't stop. If I stop, they'll catch me, and if they catch me. Her voice cracked. The wind howled louder, as if answering her fear. A new sound rose from the storm. A low, distant rumble. Not thunder. Not wind. Something moving. Something big. Something fast. Elara's heart lurched painfully, slamming against her ribs like it wanted to break free and escape without her. She pushed herself off the tree and forced her legs to move, fighting through the deep snow. Her vision spun again. Her steps grew uneven. Another branch snapped behind her. This time too sharply to be anything natural. Her breath hitched. They were close. Too close. She broke into a run, ignoring the burning in her lungs, ignoring the blood loss, ignoring the way her injured arm throbbed with every heartbeat. The forest blurred around her, white, black, flashes of trees against the storm, flashes of her own panic pushing her forward. But her legs were losing their strength. Her balance was slipping. Her breaths were shallow, desperate. She stumbled again. This time harder. And crashed to her knees. Snow exploded around her, cold enough to shock her skin into screaming. She tried to rise. Her hand slipped. She tried again. Her body betrayed her. The world tilted sideways. Her forehead met the rough bark of a fallen tree, and she clung to it like an anchor, gasping for air. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. Not like this, she whispered, tears burning her eyes. I can't let them win. I can't. Her fingers dug into the bark. Get up, Elara, she whispered to herself. Get up. You have to. But before she could move, a shadow slid across the snow. Silent. Smooth. Too fast to be human. Elara froze. Her body went rigid, breath trapped somewhere between her chest and throat. She didn't dare turn around. Her instincts screamed at her. Her pulse hammered so violently she could feel it in her fingertips. There, behind her. Something waited. Watching. Measuring her weakness. Her breath trembled out of her in one broken exhale. She collapsed against the tree, head ringing, vision darkening around the edges. Her fingers slipped. Her knees buckled. She was losing the fight. Losing the forest. Losing herself. And just before consciousness slipped fully through her grasp, she whispered a final plea into the storm, her voice soft, fragile, but full of the last ember of hope she still clung to. Someone, anyone, help me. The forest didn't answer. The storm didn't soften. But something in the shadows shifted. Like a presence stepping forward, like the air thickening around her. Something had hurt her. And it was no longer hiding. The moon had shifted by the time they reached the glade, though neither of them had noticed when or how. It felt as if the world had gently rearranged itself around them, guiding their feet toward a place neither had ever dared to seek. Overhead, branches bowed inward like witnesses leaning close, their frost-tipped leaves whispering secrets older than any living wolf. The air thickened, humming with a low, ancient vibration, so subtle at first that Elara thought it was her heartbeat, until she realized it moved outside her, through her, around her. Like the earth exhaling after holding its breath for centuries. Elara's steps faltered. Something was calling them. Not in words. Not in sound. But in a pressure behind the ribs, a pull in the marrow, a whisper stitched into the moonlight itself. Draven turned his head, nostrils flaring. He felt it too. The Alpha Prince who feared nothing, whose name even warriors spoke carefully, paused as though standing before something sacred enough to bow to. Elara swallowed hard. Draven. What is this place? He didn't answer at first. Couldn't. Because the glade wasn't just lit by moonlight. It was moonlight. Ribbons of pale silver drifted low to the ground, curling around their feet like smoke coming up from the earth. The trees surrounding them stood unnaturally still, not a single branch stirring, though a cold wind bit at their backs moments ago. It was as if the forest itself was holding its breath. And somewhere deep in that stillness, an ancient memory stirred. Draven finally spoke, voice low, almost reverent. This part of the woods has been sealed for generations. My father called it the Lunar Veil. He stepped forward slowly. My grandfather claimed the spirits once walked openly here. My father called it superstition. His jaw tightened. But legends don't leave marks on the air like this. Elara tried to steady her breathing. But the deeper they walked, the heavier the energy grew. Pressing gently at her temples, warming the mark on her wrist until it throbbed in time with each step she took. She pulled her cloak tighter, but the heat increased. Not burning. Not painful. More like something inside her was waking. The mark shimmered beneath her skin, faint at first, then brighter. Silver threading outward like veins of light. Elara, Draven's voice changed, deeper, more cautious. It's glowing again. She looked down. The mark wasn't just glowing. It was answering something. The air ahead shifted, like a curtain parting. And there, hidden between two enormous stone outcroppings cloaked in vines and frost, was a cave mouth. Dark. Silent. Waiting. Elara felt a tremor run through her legs. I've never seen this place. No one living has, Draven murmured. The cave pulled at them, the same silent calling that guided their path growing tighter, sharper, like an invisible hand beckoning them inside. And the closer they stepped, the more Elara's mark burned, until she finally gasped, grabbing her wrist. Draven reached for her but stopped at the threshold, eyes widening. Symbols, ancient, looping runes carved deep into the stone, lit up in response to her presence. Silver fire raced along the curved lines, igniting the cave walls with soft, pulsing light. The runes recognized her. I welcomed her. I expected her. Elara. Draven's usually steady voice carried a trembling edge. This can't be a coincidence. His eyes flicked to her wrist. That mark, it's the lunar ascendant. Her breath hitched. No. It can't be. That's impossible. The lunar ascendant was just a legend? Draven finished quietly. Most truths start out that way. He moved into the cave. Elara followed, heart hammering, the runes brightening with every step she took deeper into the hollow earth. The air inside wasn't cold. It wasn't warm. It was charged. Alive. Something ancient brushed lightly against her senses, like a fingertip across the back of her mind. Curiosity. Recognition. A strange, soft welcome. The silver glow revealed a massive wall at the far end, carved with a mural so detailed it looked alive. A wolf stood tall at the center, its entire body swirled with lines of fire, silver flames dancing across its fur, illuminating the stone. Beside it, A second wolf. Much larger. Its form darker, carved in shadows so deep the light seemed to bend away from it. Its eyes burned like ember coals, sharp, watching, waiting. Draven stepped closer, jaw tightening. He whispered, almost unwilling to disturb the silence. This is the prophecy. The original. Older than every pack, older even than the first alpha line. Elara's throat tightened. The runes below the mural shimmered. Not just glowing, moving. Aligning themselves into words that pulsed like a heartbeat. Draven read the old tongue in a low whisper. One born plain, shall break the moon. One born marked, shall end the war. The whisper of the cave deepened, almost in approval, almost in warning. Elara shook her head instantly. No. No, Draven, this isn't me. I'm not some chosen anything. Her voice wavered. I was nothing in my pack. Ordinary. Fading into the background. Forgettable. Her arms wrapped around herself, as though trying to hold in the tremor building beneath her ribs. I'm not a warrior. I'm not a leader. I'm just, me. She swallowed, eyes lowering. Replaceable. Rejected. That's who I've always been. The words echoed too loudly in the ancient space. Draven's gaze snapped to her. The alpha inside him stirred, protective, fierce, indignant on her behalf. Elara, he said softly, stepping closer. You are not replaceable. She kept staring at the floor, breath shaking. Do you know what ordinary people don't do? His voice was low, steady, grounding. They don't wake ancient runes. They don't ignite walls carved before any kingdom existed. He gestured to the mural. And they don't carry a mark that responds to the moon herself. Her pulse raced. Her mark throbbed. But I'm not the one who's supposed to be in a prophecy, she whispered. I'm not strong enough. Yes, you are. There was no hesitation in him. No doubt. Something warm flickered beneath his voice, something he wasn't ready to name yet. You survived what should have broken you. You ran through a storm bleeding with no power left. You faced shadows that would have killed trained warriors. He stepped closer, slow, deliberate, until his presence wrapped around her like warmth in the frozen cave. You're stronger than anyone has ever allowed you to believe. The runes brightened again. As though agreeing. Elara blinked hard, emotion tightening her chest. Draven looked at her mark, then at the flame wolf carved in stone. Elara. The prophecy didn't come to find someone powerful. His voice softened. It came to find someone worthy. The cave pulsed, one deep, ancient heartbeat. Outside, the moon shifted higher, its light spearing into the cave, catching the silver threads of her mark until it blazed like living fire. Elara's breath caught. For the first time, she wondered if destiny had been waiting for her all along. Rising, breath-driven. The moment Elara crossed the threshold of the cave, the wind changed. It no longer carried the cold bite of winter, it carried warning. The air thickened, as though the forest itself held its breath. Draven sensed it before she did, his spine straightened, his jaw tightening as the shadows around them shifted unnaturally. Then the growl came. Low. Hungry. Wrong. A shape lunged from the darkness, then another, then three more. Wolves, but not wolves. Their bodies were warped, fur matted with soot like ash, eyes glowing with a hollow reddish light that didn't flicker like life, but pulsed like possession. Shadow wolves, creatures made from wolves who had been stripped of spirit, molded by dark magic into feral weapons. They swarmed. Draven moved before thought could catch him. One heartbeat he was beside Elara, the next he leapt forward, shifting midair. Bones cracked. Muscles tore and reformed. His massive wolf form collided with the first shadow creature, sending it crashing through the snow. The force of his landing sent tremors through the clearing. Elara staggered backward, breath shaking, the mark on her wrist glowing faintly beneath her skin. Her fingers trembled as she lifted her hand, desperate to summon the spark she'd felt in the cave. She needed the flame. She needed anything. The first flicker appeared, thin, silver, frightened of its own birth. The wolf lunged at her. She panicked. The flame burst outward, not as light, but as raw force. It crashed into the clearing with a sound like thunder struck from inside the earth. Trees bowed. Snow exploded upward. One giant pine split clean down the middle as if cleaved by a celestial blade. Wolves, shadowed and ordinary, skidded backward in fear. Silence fell for half a breath. Then the whispers began. Footsteps thundered through the woods. Real wolves, pack wolves, arrived in formation. Warriors from the outer borders. Their eyes swept the shattered clearing, the ruined tree, the scorch of silver energy still floating in the air like dust caught in moonlight. She did that. She split a tree. Gods, what is she? Voices climbed, layering fear over suspicion, suspicion over anger. Draven, still in wolf form, growled, a deep warning rumble that silenced their panic. But it didn't erase the fear in their eyes. More wolves emerged, then shifted back into human form. These ones wore the black fur-lined armor of the council enforcers. Their leader stepped forward, expression carved from stone, silver crest glinting over his heart. Alpha Draven, he called out, voice stern enough to cut the cold. Step away from the girl. The word girl struck like an insult. Elara's hands shook. She lowered them slowly, terrified of her own power, terrified of their stares. She's a danger, another enforcer snapped. We saw the flare from the valley. She bears the ascendant mark, the leader added. She must come with us. Draven shifted back into human form, breath steaming in the night air. He stepped between Elara and the enforcers, posture tense, golden eyes blazing with defiance. No one touches her. His voice carried a force that made the nearest warriors flinch. But the council didn't back down. You don't understand what you're protecting, the leader said. That mark ties her to the prophecy. And that prophecy speaks of ruin. A murmur rippled through the watching wolves, unease, superstition, fear. Elara felt all of it pressing against her skin like cold fingers. She tried to steady her breath, but Draven felt the tremor in her. He glanced back at her, just a brief look, but she saw the war happening inside him. Duty versus instinct. Alpha versus man. And she saw the moment it hurt him. The council leader stepped forward. Hand her over. Before she brings the mountains down on all of us. Elara's chest tightened painfully, breath catching like something sharp had lodged inside her ribs. She dared a look at Draven, just one. He didn't move. He didn't speak. But for a single heartbeat, he hesitated. That was enough. That tiny flicker of doubt, less than a breath, less than a blink, was enough to shatter her fragile hold on the moment. Her throat closed. Her eyes burned. She took one step backward, almost silent. His head snapped toward her. Elara, don't. She forced a small, brittle smile that didn't reach her eyes. I won't be the reason your pack turns against you. Elara, wait. But she was already moving. The forest swallowed her quickly, branches scraping her skin as she pushed through the snow. Every step was agony, her body bruised, her mind spinning, her heart breaking. She didn't know where she was going. Only that she needed to be away, from their fear, from the accusations, from Draven's silence. Behind her, voices rose again. She's running. Let her go, she's unstable. We should have bound her immediately. Through it all, she heard one voice, Draven's. Deeper. Sharper. Angrier. Elara. Come back. But she didn't look back. She ran deeper into the forest until the cold air scraped her lungs raw and the shadows blurred. Draven's footsteps thundered behind her, heavy, fast, fueled by something he didn't want to name. He could catch her easily. He knew it. She knew it. But he didn't shift. He didn't overpower her. He didn't drag her back like the council demanded. He hesitated. Because catching her meant choosing her. Fully. Publicly. Irreversibly. And Elara couldn't bear being the reason his world turned against him. So she ran. And Draven followed, close enough for her to hear him, far enough to pretend he wasn't. The world felt colder between them. Like the storm had found a way into their chests. Because this wasn't a chase. It was a fracture. An inevitable breaking point neither of them knew how to stop. Draven found her hours later. By then, the storm had quieted into a steady whisper against the mountainside, and the moon had risen high enough to cast silver ribbons across the snow. Her tracks were faint, half covered by fresh frost, but he followed them with a precision that came from something deeper than instinct. He found the cave by accident, or fate. A faint glow flickered inside. Not flame, her light. Soft, scared, pulsing like a heartbeat that didn't want to be heard. He stopped at the entrance first, letting his eyes adjust to the dim. Her silhouette was small against the jagged stone, knees pulled to her chest. The flicker of silver from her trembling hands made tiny shadows dance on the cave walls. Her cloak was torn. Her breath hitched every few seconds, like she kept trying to stop herself from crying but couldn't quite manage it. She didn't hear him enter. Not at first. Maybe she didn't want to know if anyone followed her. Maybe a part of her hoped no one would. He stepped inside quietly, not the way an alpha enters a room, but the way a man approaches someone he cares about. Slow. Careful. As though any sound too loud might break her even more. When she finally lifted her head, her eyes widened. Not in fear. Not in anger. Just exhaustion. He didn't speak. He didn't demand she return. He didn't apologize, because apologies meant nothing if they weren't held in action. He just sat beside her. Close enough for their shoulders to share warmth. Far enough to show he wasn't here to trap her. The silence stretched, soft but heavy. A silence made of things they couldn't name yet. Her breathing steadied slightly. His slowed to match hers. For a long time, neither of them moved. Then Draven spoke. Not like an alpha. Not like a warrior. But like someone peeling open a wound he had kept stitched shut for years. The first time I felt the darkness, he murmured, eyes fixed on the flicker of her half-formed flame, I was barely older than you were when you were rejected. Her head turned, slow and unsure. He continued. My parents were killed by the Shadow Alpha. The flame in her hand dimmed, as though it leaned in to listen. He kept his voice steady, but it was the kind of steadiness that came from holding pain too long. I was the only survivor of the attack. And the council didn't know what to do with a child touched by darkness but still standing in the light. His jaw tightened. So they blamed me. Not out loud. Not directly. But every glance said it. Every rule they pressed on me. Every lesson I was expected to learn faster, harder, cleaner. He drew a slow breath as though speaking pulled something old and sharp into the open. They were afraid of what I would become. A boy who survived something that should have killed him. A boy who saw darkness face to face and walked away. His eyes shifted toward her fully now. So I know, he said quietly, what it feels like to be feared before you're ever known. Elara swallowed hard, throat tightening. She wiped at the corner of her eye, but tears kept slipping down. Not from weakness. From release, like a dam had been holding too much for too long. I didn't want to hurt anyone, she whispered. I didn't want any of this. I know. I can't control what's happening inside me. It's too big. Her voice broke. And every time it sparks, I feel like I'm becoming someone I don't recognize. He didn't interrupt. He let her speak. Let her unravel the truth she'd kept silent from everyone, including herself. I've never, her fingers curled reflexively, and the silver flicker returned in her palm. I've never shifted. Not fully. Not once. Draven inhaled sharply, not in judgment, but in understanding. A wolf who never shifted was a wolf trapped between worlds. A wolf who feared the creature inside her was a wolf who had been wounded long before her body ever showed scars. She let out a shaky breath. I'm scared of what's waiting for me on the other side of the change. What if it's not a wolf? What if it's something monstrous? What if I break everything I touch? He turned toward her fully now, his presence grounding, warm in the cold cave. Look at me, Elara. She hesitated, but she did. Do you know what I see? He asked softly. Power, she whispered bitterly. Danger. A prophecy the council hates. No, his voice was low, steady, almost a whisper against her skin. I don't see your power. I see you. Her breath caught. For a moment, neither of them moved. Their faces were close, closer than before. The cave felt smaller around them, the walls echoing only their breathing, slow, uneven, shared. Her eyes flicked to his lips before she could stop herself. His gaze dropped to her trembling hands. The silver glow illuminated her cheeks, dusted them in soft moonlit warmth. He leaned in, not to kiss her, not yet, but to erase the space that made her feel alone. Their foreheads almost touched. Her pulse fluttered violently, 1,000 wings beating inside her chest. He whispered, voice barely audible, I'm not afraid of you. Her hand lifted instinctively, as if reaching for him. But halfway there, she froze. The flame flickered sharply, too hot, too wild. Fear surged through her and she jerked back, pulling her hand to her chest. I can't, she whispered. If I let myself want this, want you. I don't know what happens to me. I don't know what I become. Pain tightened Draven's features, not because she rejected him, but because she denied herself. Elara. She shook her head, tears falling freely now. I almost killed someone tonight. Maybe I will one day. Maybe the prophecy is right. Maybe I'm the reason the moon breaks. Stop. His voice cut through the panic like a steady, warm blade. You are not a prophecy. Her breath hitched. You are not a weapon. Her lips trembled. You are not a curse. Her eyes closed tightly, as though trying to hold on to his words before they could wash away. You are a girl, he whispered, who has survived everything meant to destroy her. Her shoulders shook once, barely, but he saw it. And if you let me, he continued, voice softer than the crackle of the flame between them, I'll help you learn control. I'll stand between you and the world if I have to. She looked at him again, eyes full of stormlight and fear and a longing she didn't want to name. Why, she breathed. He didn't look away. Because when I look at you, I don't see destruction. I see the one thing I never thought I'd have again. Her lips parted. What? Hope. The word landed between them like a heartbeat. Strong. Unavoidable. Alive. She felt herself leaning toward him, drawn by something deeper than instinct, something that felt old, familiar, destined. Their noses brushed lightly. His breath warmed her cheek. Her fingers twitched, reaching for him again. But just before their lips touched, just before the moment became something neither of them could take back, fear slammed into her again. She recoiled sharply, breath unsteady. I can't, she whispered. I'm not ready. Draven didn't move toward her. He didn't force the moment. He simply studied her with eyes that held patience wrapped in longing. Then I'll wait. The words were soft. But they were a vow. The settlement lights shimmered against the darkening sky as Draven led Elara through the gates, his hand hovering near her back, as if afraid to touch her, yet more afraid to lose her. The cold mountain air carried the scent of pine, steel, and wary wolves. She said, voice trembling. You believe me. I know you do. Draven swallowed hard. Elara, just give me a moment. A moment. A moment to choose between her and everyone else. Her throat burned. I stood beside you. I trusted you. I trusted. Her voice cracked, the pain twisting into something sharper, something ancient and wild. The crowd pressed closer, fear rising like a suffocating tide. She must be restrained, Elder Mara commanded. For the safety of the realm. Elara stumbled back. No. Don't touch me. Two warriors stepped forward. Draven's eyes flashed with panic. Wait. No one moves until I. But it was too late. One hand brushed her shoulder. That single touch detonated her breaking point. The air shuddered. The ground quivered. And Elara felt her heart snap open, wide, raw, unrestrained. Silver light erupted beneath her skin, bursting outward like lightning ripped from the moon itself. Wolves fell to their knees as the courtyard filled with blinding radiance. Stone cracked. Torches sputtered. The wind spiraled into a screaming cyclone around her. Her tears glowed as they fell. Don't come near me, she cried, voice trembling with fear and pain. Please just stay back. But her power surged uncontrollably, responding not to her voice but to the violence in her heartbeat. Draven threw his arm over his eyes. Elara, stop. It's hurting you. You hesitated, she whispered, and that whisper cut deeper than any blade. The cyclone fractured into shards of shimmering light that tore through the night sky. Her cloak whipped behind her as she turned and ran, past the elders, past the wolves, past Draven's outstretched hand, fleeing the judgment, the fear, the betrayal that burned like fire in her lungs. Elara! Draven roared, but the wind swallowed his voice. She sprinted into the forest, branches snapping under her feet, heart bleeding with every step. The woods answered her anguish. Leaves glowing silver as she passed, air crackling with unstable power. Her vision blurred. She didn't know where she was going. She only knew she had to get away. Away from the prophecy. Away from their fear. Away from the Alpha whose silence felt like a blade. Her sobs tore through the night. Each breath felt like glass in her chest. Her power pulsed erratically, illuminating the forest with flashes of lunar fire. Finally, her energy buckled. She collapsed against a tree, hands trembling violently, chest heaving. The world shimmered around her, alive, trembling, bright with her pain. She pressed her forehead to the bark. What am I? She whispered. Why can't I control this? Why does loving him hurt like this? Her voice broke. Branches crackled far behind her, Draven's guards searching. Wolves moving. She pushed herself to her feet and ran deeper, farther, until the voices faded and only the echo of his name in her mind remained. Draven. The one who made her feel seen. The one whose touch had steadied her. The one who couldn't speak when she needed him most. The forest swallowed her whole. By the time the moon rose fully, the settlement was roaring with panic and the Alpha's fury was tearing through the night. But Elara was gone. Running not from her destiny, but from the man she almost allowed herself to love. Night thickened over the mountains like a closing fist. The settlement, once rigid and proud, now quivered under the weight of what was coming. Wolves patrolled the perimeter with stiff tails and wide eyes, whispering of omens, of betrayal, of the girl whose power split stone. Draven stood at the gate, chest heaving, gaze locked on the dark tree line where Elara disappeared. His blood still throbbed with the echo of her magic. His silence, his single moment of hesitation, gnawed through him like a slow poison. He whispered her name into the wind, barely sound, barely breath. Elara. Then the earth trembled. Not from her. From something far older. Far darker. A sound tore through the night, deep, guttural, bone-rattling, the howl of a creature born from the shadows between worlds. Wolves froze mid-step. Torches flickered violently. Rowan's face drained of color. No, not tonight. But it was too late. A wave of black mist rolled over the ridge, swallowing light, swallowing breath. From the darkness stepped the Shadow Alpha, towering, malformed, eyes burning like dying suns. His pack spilled behind him like liquid night, bodies twisting into shapes that shouldn't exist. Nothing about them was natural. Nothing about them was wolf. The settlement erupted in chaos. Screams cut through the air. Timbers cracked under claws. Children were dragged from hiding places. Warriors lunged forward but were thrown back like broken branches. Draven shifted mid-run, bones snapping into place, fur exploding across his skin. His wolf hit the ground, massive and silver-marked, but the Shadow Alpha met him with a single swipe that ripped Draven off his feet. He crashed into a stone pillar, stone shattering under the force. His vision swam. Blood dripped into his eye. But he pushed himself up, staggering, stubborn, refusing to fall. He charged again. The Shadow Alpha slammed him down. Draven gasped, pinned beneath crushing weight. His ribs screamed. His breath left him in a harsh choked cough. His warriors rushed to help, but shadow wolves intercepted them, tearing into flesh with teeth made of smoke and hatred. Elder Mara shrieked at the sky for divine intervention. Rowan tried to drag Draven away and was thrown across the courtyard. The Shadow Alpha lowered his jaws toward Draven's throat. A death blow. A statement. A warning. Draven didn't beg. He didn't close his eyes. He just whispered through clenched teeth. Elara. I'm sorry. The Shadow Alpha's jaws opened wider. And silver light split the night. At first it was a flicker, like a star awakening. Then it roared. A beam of moonfire streaked across the sky, slamming into the ground between Draven and the Shadow Alpha. The blast shook the earth, flinging shadows back like scraps of ash caught in a hurricane. Every head turned. Every breath stopped. She walked out of the trees like something torn from legend. Glowing, furious, breathtaking. Elara. Her hair whipped around her in streams of silver flame. Her skin glowed like molten moonstone. But the most terrifying, magnificent sight was her eyes, lunar white, burning with grief and resolve. Her presence bent the air around her. She wasn't running anymore. She wasn't hiding. She stepped between Draven and the Shadow Alpha with a power that didn't ask for permission. The ground pulsed 3 times under her feet, recognizing her, claiming her, like the moon itself had descended to stand in her shadow. Elara, Draven rasped, pushing up onto one knee. You came back. She didn't look at him. Her gaze was fixed on the monster towering above them. You wanted a weapon, she said softly, voice echoing like wind through ancient caverns. You wanted a prophecy. A destroyer. Her skin cracked open, just slightly, revealing silver fur beneath. But I'm done being what anyone fears. The Shadow Alpha lunged. Elara exhaled. Silver detonated from her chest. Her body snapped forward. Bones shifting, muscles lengthening, form unraveling into something both wolf and celestial. She didn't scream. She didn't hesitate. She simply embraced what had always been inside her. Where Elara once stood, a wolf rose. Not large, not monstrous. But blinding. Her fur shimmered with streaks of pure light, each strand glowing as though woven by the moon herself. Her paws scorched the ground with silver fire. Her howl vibrated through the marrow of every living creature. Wolves dropped to their knees, unable to bear the sheer force of it. The Shadow Alpha roared and attacked. Elara met him head-on. Their collision sent shockwaves ripping through the settlement. Black and silver clashed, sparks flying in violent bursts. Shadow jaws snapped at her throat, but she twisted, striking his ribs with a burst of lunar fire that scorched through smoke. The Shadow Alpha held, staggering back. Elara didn't give him time to breathe. She lunged, sinking her glowing claws into the earth before unleashing a wave of power that tore through the battlefield, slicing through shadow wolves, ripping their forms apart into drifting ash. Draven watched, stunned, bleeding, half-broken. But alive because of her. "Elara," he whispered. "My gods." The Shadow Alpha reformed, snarling, fury burning through its misshapen body. It launched tendrils of darkness that whipped toward her like serpents. Elara slammed her paws into the ground. The earth answered. Cracks spread outward, glowing with lunar veins before erupting in pillars of white flame. The shadow tendrils dissolved into nothing. The Shadow Alpha hesitated. A mistake. Elara blurred into motion. She struck him with a burst of force that hurled him through 2 buildings. The structures collapsed in a cloud of dust and splintering wood. Wolves scrambled away. The Shadow Alpha staggered to his feet again, but slower this time, unsure, shaken. For the first time, afraid. Elara stood over him, silver breath swirling in the cold air. Her voice, when it came, echoed through the trees and the bones of everyone listening. "I will not be hunted." Her eyes blazed. "I will not be your prophecy." Her fur ignited in a halo of white fire. "I am not your sacrifice." The Shadow Alpha cowered. Elara's final words struck like a blade, cutting through centuries of fear. "I am the light you feared." She raised her head and released a howl that split the sky. So powerful the clouds above spiraled outward, revealing a moon brighter than any night before. The Shadow Alpha shrieked, body disintegrating as lunar flames consumed him from within. His form collapsed into a pile of lifeless black dust. Silence swept across the settlement. Elara's glowing wolf form stood alone in the center of the rubble, proud, fierce, unstoppable. Draven crawled toward her, every breath ragged. "Elara, look at me." But she didn't shift back. Not yet. Not after everything she had just unleashed. The wolves watched, shivering, awestruck, as her silver light softened, dimming slowly, like a fire learning to breathe again. The Shadow Alpha was gone. But the fear he awakened. It was only the beginning. The battlefield settled into an eerie stillness, the kind that comes only after something ancient has been killed. The smoke curled upward in thin, exhausted ribbons. Embers drifted like dying fireflies over the ruins. Wolves stood scattered across the shattered courtyard, some limping, some whispering in choked voices, some unable to look away from the silver wolf still standing in the center of the destruction. Elara's fur glowed faintly, the brightness retreating in soft pulses. Each breath she took steamed into the air as if her lungs were still cooling from wildfire. Her paws were planted firmly in the broken earth, but her legs trembled, just enough for anyone who had studied her closely to see. But nobody dared step toward her. Not yet. Not after what she'd just done. A single gust of cold air swept through the settlement, dragging the smell of ash and moonfire across the courtyard. Wolves instinctively dipped their heads, unsure whether to bow to her, or run from her. Even the moon seemed to hold its breath. Draven moved first. He dragged in air through bloodied teeth, forcing himself upright. Every step was agony. His ribs ground against each other with wet cracks, but he kept moving, slow, determined, almost reverent. His wolf form softened, bones folding back with a shudder until he stood as a man again, bare, wounded, breathless. Snow clung to his skin, melting against the heat radiating from his injuries. But his eyes were locked on her with a kind of aching devotion he didn't bother to hide. "Elara," he whispered, voice raw and unsteady. "Look at me." The silver wolf's ears twitched. Her head lifted by a fraction. But she didn't turn. Not yet. Draven limped closer, each footstep cracking through the silence like a vow. Wolves parted for him, stepping aside as though he were walking into the heart of a storm they feared would swallow him. His voice lowered, softer now, reaching for her the way someone reaches for the edge of a dream they're terrified to wake from. "Will you stay?" The words trembled, too honest, too exposed. "Or walk away from me?" Elara's body is still. Her claws shifted in the dirt, digging deeper, as if anchoring herself in place. The silver glow around her dimmed further, pulling inward like a tide retreating from shore. She didn't turn. She didn't shift. She just breathed, each inhale sharp, each exhale shaky, caught between the violence she unleashed and the vulnerability waiting on his lips. Draven stood a few feet behind her, chest rising and falling unevenly. Snow gathered in his hair. Blood streaked down his arms. He looked like a warrior dragged through hell and still begging, quietly, fiercely, for just one truth from her. "Elara," he said, voice cracking, "don't leave me with silence." The wolves watched, barely daring to blink. Because this moment, this single sliver of breath between them, felt like the final hinge on which their entire world turned. Elara finally shifted her weight. The silver wolf shuddered. Her fur dimmed. Her shape bent inward. But not into a full shift. Just enough to reveal her eyes. Her gaze turned toward Draven, glowing faintly in the smoke. And for the first time since the battle, he saw her, not the prophecy, not the monster, not the power that terrifies every council elder. Just her. The girl who once ran from her own shadow. The girl who never believed she was worth choosing. The girl who burned herself alive to protect the same pack that feared her. Her eyes softened, and broke. Inside the glowing wolf's body, she whispered a thought so raw it felt like it bled into the air around her. "If I stay, I could ruin you." The wolf didn't speak, but the meaning hung heavy between them. Draven stepped closer. "I'm already ruined," he breathed. "Just let me choose how." Her breath hitched. The wolves murmured in shock, some stepping back, others stepping forward as if to warn him. But Draven didn't care. He didn't look at them. He didn't care about councils, prophecies, fear or politics. He cared about her. Only her. He closed the last few steps, stopping an arm's length away from her flickering form. His voice dropped into something fragile, almost trembling. "You don't have to be light for them," he said. "Just, be Elara for me." The silver wolf's ears flattened. A soft sound escaped her, half growl, half sob. The glow around her brightened, wavering like a candle in wind. She stepped back, then forward, then froze. Torn. Unmoored. One heartbeat away from breaking. Between destiny and desire. Between running and choosing. Between her power and the one man who still dared to reach for it. Her gaze locked onto Draven's, bright with longing, drowning in fear. He whispered one last truth, so quiet it seemed only meant for her soul. "I don't fear you, Elara. I fear losing you." Her entire body shook. Her light surged, bright, then dim, then bright again, as if her heart didn't know whether to accept him or save him from herself. Seconds stretched like lifetimes. The settlement held its breath. Draven waited, bleeding, desperate, completely unguarded. Elara's tail flicked once. Her claws flexed in the snow. Her breathing slowed, steady, deliberate. And then, her energy collapsed inward. The silver glow folded around her like a shield, hiding her shape from view. She turned her head away from him, not in rejection, but in torment. As though she were choosing between two different wars. And losing both. A single whisper escaped her wolf form, cracked with pain. "Draven. I don't know if I can stay." And just like that. Silence. Heavy, heart-splitting silence. The kind that promises everything is about to change. The kind that asks the listener a question deeper than the story itself. Would you stand at her side, or fear her too? The night seemed to lean in for the answer. And the narrator's voice softened into a haunting echo. Would you have chosen her, or feared her too? If this story lit something inside you, subscribe to Moonlight Mate Stories. Here, every tale burns beneath the moon. Elara's footsteps sank softly into the frost-hardened forest floor. Each step carried weight far beyond her slender frame, weight of destiny, of fear, of a life she had never asked for but could never escape. The silver glow that had wrapped around her like a mantle through the battle now flickered, dimming with each heartbeat. She moved cautiously, aware that even now, the forest watched her. Shadows clung to the trunks of ancient pines, curling around roots like waiting fingers. The air tasted of snow, smoke, and iron, mingling with the subtle hum of her still untamed power, which pulsed faintly beneath her skin, restless, hungry, waiting. Draven stayed frozen where he had collapsed to one knee in the ruined courtyard, bloodied and weary. His gaze followed her through the thinned veil of smoke, catching every flicker of silver that lingered in the air around her. His chest rose and fell with ragged breaths, each exhale a silent plea. He wanted to run after her, to claim her in that moment, to protect her from what he knew would come, but the council's accusations, the whispers of fear, the unrelenting weight of prophecy, all of it held him back. And still, he could not look away. The forest around Elara seemed to bend toward her as she walked. Branches bent slightly under an unseen weight, snow whispered along the ground as though urging her forward. Her ears twitched at every whisper of movement. Somewhere, hidden in the darkness, creatures stirred, wolves she did not yet know, spirits older than the mountains themselves. And then, beneath the ordinary sounds of night, a low vibration rolled through the earth, subtle at first, almost imperceptible, like the tremor before a storm breaks. Her steps faltered. The forest floor quivered beneath her paws. The trees seemed to groan, their trunks bowing slightly as though acknowledging a power far beyond anything they had seen in centuries. The hairs on the back of her neck stood on end. She had felt her silver flame surge in moments of fear, in moments of anger, in moments of heartbreak, but this was something different. A recognition, a call, a warning. And then the moon, full, silver, and impossibly bright, flickered. A shiver ran through the air, and the forest exhaled a breath of frost and shadow. Elara stopped. Her claws dug into the icy soil instinctively, and her glowing eyes scanned the surrounding darkness. The wind shifted suddenly, swirling through the branches and rustling the snow, carrying a sound that made her pulse spike, a deep, resonant voice, older than the mountains, layered with power and intent. She is not the only one. The words rolled across the trees like thunder trapped in shadow. They wrapped around her, seeped into her bones, igniting the silver fire that pulsed beneath her skin. Her tail flicked nervously, ears pricking forward, and her muscles tensed as though preparing to leap into a battle she didn't yet understand. Every instinct screamed that she was being watched, not by ordinary eyes, but by something beyond comprehension. Something ancient. Something that could sense her power, her heart, and her potential. Draven's chest tightened in the ruins, his instinct screaming a warning he couldn't articulate. Even wounded, even broken by the battle she had just endured, he knew this voice was not ordinary. He clenched his fists, feeling the earth tremble beneath him, and a pang of fear pierced him for the first time, not for himself, but for her. She had faced the Shadow Alpha. She had unleashed a power that leveled walls, shook the earth, and split the night. And yet, this voice, this tremor in the world, whispered of more. Elara's breath caught. The silver light that had clung to her began to expand, flickering and wavering, reacting to the unseen presence. Her heart raced, not from fear alone, but from the undeniable pull that tugged at something buried deep within her soul. It was as if the forest itself was calling her name, as if destiny had sent a ripple across centuries just to find her. The ground shuddered again, harder this time. Small rocks rolled along the slope, cracking ice beneath them. Trees quivered in acknowledgement, their roots stretching into the soil like veins of some enormous, unseen creature. And then, almost imperceptibly at first, but growing louder, the whispers joined the tremors, weaving together into a sentence that chilled her blood and made her claws flex. The true Alpha hasn't risen, yet. The words hung in the air, resonating through the forest, through her very being, through the mountains and valleys that cradled the settlement she had left behind. They were neither threat nor promise, neither challenge nor reassurance, they were prophecies. And yet, in those few syllables, Elara felt the weight of expectation settle on her shoulders, heavier than any she had ever carried. Her silver eyes widened. She turned, scanning the trees, expecting to see a form, a shadow, a wolf, or some ancient being, but there was nothing. Only the pulse of the forest and the lingering hum of her own power, which throbbed like a drumbeat in the quiet night. Her chest heaved, and for the first time since the battle, she allowed herself a tremor of fear, fear of what was to come, fear of what she might yet become, fear of the unseen forces that now knew she existed. Draven, watching from the settlement, could sense her hesitation even from a distance. His jaw tightened. He had promised himself he would never lose her again, not to prophecy, not to fear, not to power. But the earth's tremor, the whisper of a name he did not know, the darkness threading through the trees, it all told him this was only the beginning. That this was not over. Not for her, not for him, not for their pack. Elara lifted her head, lifting her glowing eyes to the flickering moon. The wind whipped around her, tugging at her cloak and her hair, pressing the forest against her skin like a living thing. And in that moment, between breaths, between heartbeats, between the pull of destiny and the ache of isolation, she realized that she was not the only one being tested. The world itself was awakening. And it was watching her. Waiting for her to make her choice. She stepped forward cautiously, each footfall deliberate, leaving faint impressions in the snow. Her claws clicked softly on ice. Every nerve screamed awareness. Every instinct shouted to flee. And yet, she did not run. Because the voice had not commanded. It had only been announced. It had only warned. It had only revealed the truth that the world was far larger than she had imagined, and the prophecy far more dangerous than any counsel could have predicted. The silver flame that had dimmed around her sparked anew, thin at first, then brighter, as if responding to the tremors in the earth. It licked along her fur, ghostly and ethereal, illuminating the trees in brief flashes. And for the first time, Elara felt the weight of her own power, not as a curse, not as a danger, but as a promise. A promise that the story she had been thrust into was far from over. Draven's voice, carried on the wind in a whisper she could not hear, seemed almost like a tether. I will find you. But the forest answered only with silence, only with whispers, only with prophecy. And in that moment, the screen of reality itself seemed to flicker. The moon's glow dimming and brightening, the shadows stretching unnaturally, and the snow freezing midair before drifting down again. The voice came once more, deeper now, layered with power that made the very soil vibrate. She is not the only one. The true alpha hasn't risen, yet. Elara's heart pounded. Her breath caught in her throat. Her body thrummed with anticipation, fear, and unyielding determination. And for a brief moment, she allowed herself to imagine the impossible. That she could meet this destiny, face the unknown, and still remain herself. Then, with a flick of her silver tail, she melted into the shadows of the forest, leaving only traces of silver light behind. The tremor slowly faded. The whispers receded into the dark. And the world waited. Draven's hand clenched into a fist, the snow melting into blood and mud beneath him. He whispered into the silent night, barely more than a breath. I'll be ready. And the forest answered only with quiet, the rustle of leaves, and a lingering sense that the story, Elara's story, their story, was far from over. Fade to black. Elara emerged from the forest at dawn, the first fragile light brushing the snow-dusted peaks. Her silver form shimmered faintly in the morning, like the last trace of a dream hanging between night and day. The wind carried the scent of frost and pine, but also something else, warmth, renewal, the quiet promise of survival. Her paws sank softly into the snow, each step deliberate, steady, a declaration. She was no longer running. She was returning, not as the girl they feared, not as the plain one who had been rejected, but as the alpha she had always been meant to become. Draven waited at the settlement's edge, leaning against the jagged remains of the stone wall that had once been their refuge. He was scarred, tired, and still healing, but his golden eyes lit with unwavering determination when he saw her. The moment their gazes met, the world narrowed. All the pain, betrayal, fear, and doubt fell away, leaving only the raw truth between them. They belonged together. Elara slowed, letting her silver flame settle, the light now steady and controlled, radiating not threat, but life. The wolves around the settlement, once whispering suspicion and fear, now watched in silent awe. She did not need their approval. She had already claimed her power, claimed her destiny, and in that act had claimed herself. Draven stepped forward, the golden glint of his eyes softening as he approached. He extended a hand, not commanding, not demanding, but offering trust, loyalty, and love. "You don't have to face this alone," he said, voice low but steady. Elara studied him for a long, heart-stopping moment. She remembered the fear of rejection, the ache of being hunted, the searing betrayal of the council, and the raw, untamed power that had almost destroyed her, but she also remembered the warmth of his hands, the honesty in his gaze, the rare comfort of being seen truly. Slowly, she placed her hand in his. It was a spark, a promise, and a tether to the world she was ready to reclaim. The council, who had doubted, whispered, and accused, now knelt before the reality of her power. The prophecy was no longer a threat, it was a revelation. The girl they had called weak, ordinary, and dangerous had broken free of fear, of expectation, of every cage they had tried to confine her within. Elara lifted her head to the rising sun, silver eyes meeting the light. She exhaled, and with that breath, the forest, the mountains, and the settlement seemed to sigh with relief. Her silver fur glimmered in the morning, a living testament to resilience, strength, and the courage to embrace one's true self. Draven stepped closer, closing the distance between them. He did not speak, for no words were necessary. The air around them thrummed with shared understanding, the language of heartbeats, of warmth, of trust. Slowly, he brushed a strand of snow-laden hair from her face. The faintest smile tugged at her lips, hesitant but real. "I thought I was losing you," he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "You never lost me," she replied, strength threading through vulnerability. "I just had to find myself." The moment stretched, infinite in its intimacy. Wolves watched silently, snow glittering like scattered stars around them, and even the mountains seemed to lean in, witnessing the rebirth of two souls entwined by fate, fire, and the pull of the moon. Elara lowered her head, pressing it lightly against Draven's chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. The tremors of battle and prophecy faded into memory, replaced by something quieter, steadier, hope. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel it fully, love that did not demand perfection, power that did not destroy, destiny that embraced her rather than crushed her. Draven's hand found the mark on her wrist, the lunar ascendant, now pulsing gently with life and light. He traced it with reverence. "You were never plain," he said, voice husky with awe. "You were always extraordinary. You were always mine to protect, if you let me." Elara looked up, eyes meeting his. For the first time, she did not recoil. She did not doubt. She simply nodded. The wolf stirred, a low, harmonious howl echoing through the valley. It was not a howl of fear, nor of challenge, but of acceptance, of unity, of the dawn of a new era. Elara straightened, standing taller than she ever had, silver fur catching the first golden rays of sunrise. The alpha she had been running from, the one in the prophecy, the one feared by all, had emerged fully, but now she did so by her own choice, in her own time, on her own terms. Draven stepped beside her, side by side. Together, they looked out over the mountains, the valley, and the settlement that had once rejected them. Together, they would lead, protect, and love without fear. The prophecy was no longer a chain. It was a path, lit by silver fire, and theirs to walk together. And as the sun rose higher, scattering the last remnants of night, Elara whispered to the wind, to the mountains, to the forest. "I am not your sacrifice. I am the moon's light. I am her fire. I am me." The snow shimmered around them. Wolves bowed their heads. The world exhaled. And in that moment, for the first time, Elara, Draven, and the pack felt something that had been missing for centuries: peace, power, and love intertwined, a story completed, a legacy reclaimed, a future waiting. Fade to the quiet hum of wind over mountains, the lingering echo of silver flames, and the sense that though battles may come, love and courage will always prevail under the watchful eye of the moon.